Welcome to the Dragon's Den. I'm your venerable host, Orochi, and today we're going to be talking about Feathers and Gold from the Dragons and Skylines series, and really the whole series as a whole, all three books. I had wanted to separate them individuals, but I couldn't stop reading, so that's the first thing you need to know about it. There's a term for it, and I don't remember what it is, but modern day fantasy, city fantasy, that sort of thing, where it's the usual cliche thing of like the Vampire Masquerade kind of stuff, where it's magic is unknown to normal people and all that sort of thing, which is extremely unlikely. And I sort of like the way the book the series really handles how all these different magical creatures, because yes, there's dragons, there's werewolves, maybe vampires and wizards and other spellcasters and all this different stuff, and they've all kept hidden from humanity since the dawn of time or whatever. And some of it is dragons use magic to hide themselves, and pretty much everybody else kind of does too in their own unique ways, which is interesting. But the premise of the series, starting out, like the first third or half of this book, is all about a young dragoness who has lost her parents. They left and never came back. They went on an expedition, and she has to maintain her little demi-plane, because all the dragons live in their own little magical demi-planes to keep themselves separate from human civilizations. But to do so, they need rare minerals, gold, gems, hoards, all that kind of stuff, in order to maintain this magic. And she's burnt through a significant portion of her parents' hoard trying to maintain their home, and then she's realized, well, it's been, a few years, and this is non-sustainable anymore. So she somehow gets a job at a wizard's tech company, and they're going to pay her in rare materials that she can use, which is interesting. And that sets up the whole premise of the series, basically, is that what is the difference between humans and dragons? Because it starts off with her using a magical device to turn herself into a human. And it's not like an illusion, it's not any sort of minor magic. It is a full physical transformation, and not like the kind of stuff you'd have in like Dungeons and Dragons or other sorts of light fantasy, where it's a physical change and everything else remains the same, where it's like, oh, she's still a dragon, she still has super heightened senses and super strength and can take axes and bullets and stuff because she has a dragon's physiology. Is like, no, she literally becomes human, and all of that entails. And it's comical at first, because when the book starts off, it's hot dropped right into she's walking down the street in human form, and she put zero practice into using human form, so she has no clue how to do it. So she can't walk on two legs. She's stumbling down the frickin' street trying to hide herself, because she can't even fully maintain human form, because even using this device, she has to concentrate on it all the time. And because she hasn't used it before, she's constantly losing her grip on her form, and it keeps changing slightly. And it also delves into how she has no human social skills whatsoever, and it leans super heavily into the theming of the entire series right off from the start. Is like, what is the difference between humans and dragons, both physically, socially, and how they interact with each other in all these different ways, and magically and all these different things. And I absolutely adore the way that this series looks into those sorts of things, because it's not a small thing. So the quick and dirty of it is that I loved this series. It was fantastic. Of course, I will get into some of the problems I had and all that sort of stuff, but as it's short and dirty, yes, if you like dragons, if you like or can at least tolerate modern fiction, because it's not something I'm really keen on. Like, most modern fiction to me is just like, you cannot explain away like the Vampire the Masquerade kind of stuff. It's like, you cannot explain away how people in general do not find out, especially in the modern day. Like, when Vampire the Masquerade first started, yeah, vampires had infested human society in such a way that, you know, you could sweep the shit under the rug. But as of the modern founding of the internet, now that everybody has cell phones that have cameras and can record video on them, it's like, no, a single person finding a magical happening and putting that shit online requires so much work to sweep that under the rug, and it doesn't, like, the bar of making that untenable is fairly low, because then all somebody would have to check is like, oh, did somebody start a magical fire somewhere? All somebody would have to go is to that place and record later on, and it's sort of easy to fact check that kind of stuff. It's not perfect or anything, but, you know, you can easily put it into, there's thousands of things that we can still sweep under the rug, but that bar is slowly getting lower and lower, and I find that extremely interesting how this book handles that sort of stuff. And I'll get into spoilers on how it really gets into it. But even being able to just tolerate the idea of modern day fantasy, I really loved this book, and that's not something I'm generally into. So I think that says a lot. And if you like something that really dives into all of the differences between dragons physically, socially, economically, biologically, like all these deep things through a very well made out story, and the consequences of a few people and how they interact with these differences to make a really fantastic and deep story. And I think you would definitely love this series. So that's going to be my quick and dirty. The rest of this is going to be spoiler filled. So if that's not what you want, head out now, come back later, and please, once you finish reading this, come back, leave some comments on what you thought about it and how you think my take is different than what yours. So right off the bat, she gets a job, and it never really gets into how did she get that job. That was my first big thing where I'm like, I'm waiting to find out, how did she get this job? Because it sort of says that, yeah, she has, you know, technological stuff in her home. She has a freezer and lights and all this stuff, but that's because her parents put them there. It never says anything about her really getting into the technology, where her cousin, on the other hand, is like your typical like weebo, except for humans in general. He's a dragon who loves humans. He plays video games. He's got his own custom setup rig for gaming in his natural dragon form. And so he's all super into technology and learning about humans and all that kind of stuff. But it never gets into how she managed to get this job. You can only kind of infer maybe it was from her, through him, because his advice also gets her into some of the other stuff that gets into. And he has the power of foresight, where he can see the future. So, you know, when a certain thing pops up, and then he's like, oh yeah, you know, I've already seen that you're going to go and do this, so keep it in mind that you need to go and do this. Which is sort of weird when you think about it. But then when it's just like, you know, his advice was, go here because I've seen you going there and it helps you out. And so she's just like, all right, well, he has good advice since he, quote unquote, sees the future or whatever. He gives good advice, so she goes along with it. And it does help her out, so that's super cool. So you can only assume that she got this job because of something he did or he helped her with, but it's never really fleshed out in any way whatsoever. It's just like, oh, she has this job. And for some reason, either because she is massively overconfident or she's kind of naive, which she is fairly young, so you can sort of think that what would a naive dragon be like? Super overconfident, but still kind of super stupid about so many things because they just are ignorant about them. They know nothing about this sort of stuff. So she uses this item to turn into human form, and she does not practice the human form. So while she's stumbling around and she gets soaked in the rain and falls in the mud, so when she gets to her job, she looks like trash. And then at one point in her first day, she's probably thinking, you know what? On hindsight, I probably should have practiced with this a little bit more. And it's just like, you fucking think? Like, did she think? It's sort of like a meta commentary on so much shapeshifter stuff where you just see, oh, somebody taking a form that is completely alien to their own and still managing to get along with it. So it's sort of this meta commentary on that sort of stuff, and sort of just saying, it's like, you know, that sort of stuff is stupid. Like, if you just take a form that you're not used to, you're going to be stumbling around because you have no clue how to keep your center of balance in this form, or how to move your limbs properly, or anything. So we're all thinking about it as like, yeah, of course, that's freaking stupid. You're not going to just know how to use a form. But depending upon what media you're used to watching, you might not even think about it. It should be fucking obvious to you, but because of certain things training you to think a certain way, you could just easily not even think about the difficulty of actually having a different body. So that was a cool thing. And then it immediately starts off with putting the character in a spot where it's like, oh, this is why humans and dragons cannot get along. Because this wizard technology corporation is all like, cool, you're going to be working here, and we require you to be in human form all the time. Don't be a dragon at all in any way, shape, and or form. Don't act like it. We kind of hate magical creatures here. We do experiments on them, probably, maybe, but just be human. We're magical creatures too, technically. We're uplifted humans. All wizards are uplifted humans, but we're better than humans because we're uplifted, and all other magical creatures are kind of just like animals, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt. So it immediately puts it into this deep end of why did she get this job if everyone's going to treat her like shit? And they don't go out of their way to treat her like shit, but it's this sort of thing is like, why the fuck are you acting weird? And as soon as her magical nature starts flaring out because she's getting frustrated with shit, everyone's like, oh shit, what the fuck is that? That's not normal. That's fucking weird. People shouldn't do that kind of stuff, and start avoiding her. So it immediately puts you in the perspective of, these are the problems magical creatures face when trying to interact with humans. And the book series as a whole is like, that's kind of the overall theme, is like, how do humans and other magical creatures, specifically dragons in this case, manage to get along? Because she gets a lab partner who's basically her, not her boss, but, you know, a step above her in the hierarchy. And she's like, that makes sense. He's going to know more about working here, but in every other way, shape, and or form, I'm above him, period. These wizards are funny because they think they're above humans, but they're still just food. Humans are weak prey species to most other things, especially dragons, and so that immediately sets this tone of the majority of dragons don't really value humans all that much because humans are super weak. And it's like, yes, they have had for over 100 years now laws against killing and eating humans and all this stuff, but it's still like this foundational thing that's, you know, been going on forever, that it's like, yeah, humans are weak. Like, you just swipe your claws at them and they're freaking dead. Like, how can you put a lot of value in something like that? And so everything about the social dynamics of humans and dragons is so different and so volatile that it's like, how do you get around this? And it definitely doesn't touch on that through the first book. The first book is mostly just her trying to deal with working at this place, and then her cousin tells her to, you know, go to this other place that he used to visit all the time where magical creatures are free to lay low and just hang out and be themselves and stuff. And then she starts finding out that, oh, there's one of the permanent residents of this place is missing. And that immediately kind of sets off alarms. It's like, oh, you have this wizard technology place who, she's heard rumors that they experiment on magical creatures and stuff, and they don't really value the lives of other magical creatures. And suddenly, one or more magical creatures have started disappearing in this local area. This immediately starts you with, oh, we've got a problem here. I see where this is going. And then that's mostly the rest of that book, is going through that plot thread, finding out that, yes, the corporation was behind it, but then she also gets strung up in it and finds out that the entire reason why she was hired there in the first place is because of the things that she put on her resume, that she's talented in time and space magic, which is what they were looking for, because they're trying to open basically a Stargate. I don't know what else you would call these. That was kind of the first show that really dug into that sort of stuff, so I will always just call it that. But, you know, a gate to another world. And so they chain her up and drain her magic to power this thing, use her as a battery, which immediately is just like, oh, shit. So, you know, corporation, big bad evil guys. But her lab partner through this whole thing has been helping her to track down this missing Fae, and then when they find it and she breaks them out, he's all like, we can't do this. This is illegal. This is really bad. We are going to get into a lot of trouble doing this shit. We have to follow the law. And then he finds out that, oh, you know, the super secret wizard organization that, you know, unbeknownst to everybody at the time, his dad is a part of, and he's kind of got his hopes of being inducted into at one point, is behind all the stuff and kind of owns the corporation. So he's all like, yeah, they're doing this stuff for a reason, so we should leave it the fuck alone. And she's like, they've captured somebody and are draining them of magic. We've got to get them out. And that leads to an altercation with the cops where she uses her magic because they start shooting. All hell breaks loose and it gets caught on camera. So then next day, suddenly everybody in the world knows that magic exists. But she doesn't recover until days later. So by then it's like, oh yeah, you're so far beyond covering this shit up, even if other people have already tried it, that you are now the center of, you broke everything. All the social norms are gone because of you, which is, that's a big thing. And then it kind of progresses from there on. Okay, well, how does she deal with this? Because it hasn't solved her initial problem of her home is slowly running out of power, and now she has all these other problems, and she's probably being tracked down by the corporation, if not this friggin' wizard cult that want to drain her for power. And yeah, it gets kind of crazy. And then we get into book 2, which the whole first book is from Grath's point of view. She goes by Grith because it's easier for humans to pronounce. I love every time that she just says it normally. I was like, yeah, you shouldn't just shorten it for humans. Fuck humans. But the second book starts splitting it off into 4 different perspectives of 4 of pretty much what's going to be main character-ish through the rest of the story. So she's the gold-feathered dragon. Her cousin is the silver-feathered dragon. And so he gets pulled into this because then the 2 of them get summoned to, like, the Dragon Council, where all the dragons that live in the North Americanish hemisphere are all called to this gathering and just be like, as a species, what are we going to do about this shit? And they have to explain how it happened. Which is that's a big thing. Because they're both sort of, not really prodigies, but they are the grandchildren of the leader, one of the 4 leaders of all dragon kind. And their grandfather specifically began learning more than the innate magic of dragons. He pioneered spellcraft in dragons. So they've kind of are in this, you know, they have a lot to live up to sort of situation, but have also kind of really fucked everything up and everything's going bad. So that's the sort of situation where they're getting pulled into. And then it also follows her lab partner, Chris, who betrays her, and he's the reason why she got captured by them in the first book. So he kind of turns to I have to follow the law, and I'd rather side with these wizards because after spending more than a day with her, he's like, yeah, she has violent outbursts and doesn't really have any interest in holding up our social norms or our laws or fitting in or anything like that. That makes her monstrous because she's also very deadly. So he gets pulled into the ranks of this wizard cult and goes to work in New York at their headquarters. And then we are introduced to Lilith, who's an Eastern dragon, which is everything you imagine as an Eastern long dragon. And that's super cool. But she's sort of a prisoner there. And her entire history is just most tragic backstory ever. Start here. Because she's a half human, half dragon, in such that this world, those two things are literally incompatible at a genetic level, but the magic fuses it together, so she's not really half dragon, she's either dragon or human, and she can swap between the two, but because at a genetic level those two things do not work together, she is not a hybrid of her parents in any way, shape, and or form. She's literally a clone of them, which is super weird. So her dragon form is a clone of her mother, and her human form is a clone of her father, which, yes, automatically makes her like transgendered, which is fucking crazy. I don't think over the course of the last two books that it really strikes on that often enough. Because throughout the whole thing, it always calls her as she, her, denotes feminine. And even when she reveals this to Chris, it's, the weirdness of it and everything, but it never really harps on that because there's so many points after she starts taking her human form where I do think in these situations people would probably react to her differently because she's a man than if she was a woman, especially young. Whenever she gets in trouble or whatever in her human form, everyone just calls her kid. And there's parts where I guess I'll get into that a little bit, but that's sort of a very, very minor issue, but I thought that could get into that a little bit more and how you deal with just having not a choice in it. It is just it's naturally dual gendered. Like, that is a fantastic thing you could get into, and it just doesn't really touch on it too much, which I think is kind of unfortunate. Because that's such a unique perspective, and you couldn't even really compare the perspective either. It's like the male human perspective versus the female dragon perspective. It's like, even still, there's just no comparing them whatsoever. So maybe that's why it doesn't get into it, but I thought it was something it could have tackled a little bit more. And when Chris first meets her, he's sort of changed a bit from the first book. In the first book, he's just like rather sheepish, but all gotta go with the law, straight and narrow kind of shit. In the second book, he's, after being inducted into the cult, he's kind of like, I have to do my best. I have to shine here, and just because this is everything that I wanted. So he starts growing a backbone and putting himself out there. And when he's talking about things that he knows about, he really shows that, he's all in on it and he'll fight for this and that sort of stuff. But he's still, whenever things start turning on him, he gets sort of that sheepish nature again and stammers over things and sputters and kind of gets pushed over still, which I think is great. How his character arc is pretty friggin' impressive over the course of the 3 books. And so when he meets Lilith, she tells him that, she's a hybrid. All dragons want her dead because hybrids have like infinite magical potential. And so they can just become, supreme, like, godly beings and just enforce their will on everything. And the last hybrid was trained by a guild of mages to hunt down and kill dragons. So the dragons kind of just have it out as, oh yeah, all these things need to die because they are such a catastrophic threat to not just dragons, but everything. Which is hilariously juxtaposed to the fact that humans view dragons that way because they're such a huge threat to humans that the wizards are kind of just like, oh yeah, part of our plan is we need to eradicate all dragons because they're a threat not just to us, but to humans in general. So that's just a huge... And that never really gets hammered home to, like, all the dragon leaders. They never get their face rubbed into it enough, I think. They maybe vaguely get it a tiny bit, but it's never, like, shoved in their face that, these wizards want to eradicate dragons because we're a threat to them, and you want to eradicate her because she's a threat to you. It's like, yeah, which I think is very unfortunate. But she tells Chris that her tragic backstory is that her mother captured a guy, mated with him, and then killed him because she had no more use for him, and specifically had Lilith just to then create the wizard cult, and then went off and let herself die because she's was an ancient dragon who used her... She had innate healing magic, and she used that to live twice as long as any other dragon. And then after having Lilith and set up this cult, she just let herself grow old and die. Which is just like, what emo fucking shit is going on here? This is crazy. And so, at face value, Chris can kind of look at that and be just like, I have no idea how to take this shit. I can't even, take if any of this shit is true or whatever. You might just trying to be playing me because, as far as I know, dragons don't give a flying fuck about humans, and so lying to us to let our guard down is just something they would do. But then it immediately goes to Lilith's perspective in the next chapter and just confirms all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, that's her tragic backstory and it's real. So then you immediately start getting attached to her because, especially I did, because Lilith has a lot of, like Catholic schoolgirl sort of super trapped in these social walls, and for her physical, where she can't do anything other than what she's told to do, and her whole thing is just she wants to push boundaries. She wants to do whatever she can because, she's a teenager or whatever, and she just wants to push every boundary she can because the boundaries are all over the place. And she kind of has a privileged life where, she lives in a penthouse. She has all her needs met, but she's in the gilded cage. So she's trying to push against it as much as possible because she's naive to the things that could happen to her, which is very interesting. So her and Chris kind of have this super interesting relationship. And I think it is the way it turns out is super tragic, and I kind of hated it, but it makes so much sense. Because there's the Dark Lord who's there running the cult, and his whole thing is, we need to get rid of dragons. The easiest way to do that is to turn human perception against them, and then you can just have the United States military take them out. So they orchestrate all these things, and they're kind of the ones who were covering up magical stuff in the first place, because the Council of Magical Creatures, this cult, had infiltrated and kind of taken over. So once that wasn't needed anymore, they just kind of dissolved it. And at one point, Chris and Lilith get really close, and they start becoming very good friends, if not slightly more. But then Chris tries to break her out. And he does. He manages, because he thinks outside the box and likes designing apparatuses. He does something so that she can harness her magical power and break the barrier that's holding the tower, away from everything, because it's in the middle of New York City, but the barrier keeps anybody from thinking about it and keeps Lilith from being able to exit. So they break that, they get out, but then they get beaten down in a fight and captured. And as at every point that Chris rebels slightly against what they're doing, because he's all like, he learns that the cult sent a team of wizards to the Dragon Council meeting, and using the technique that he had developed with his time spending with Grith in the first book, he had found out that there's a certain, since dragons consume these metals that are enchanted, that naturally soak up magical properties, since he's a sound and light wizard, that's his specialty, he figured out that since dragons have an abnormal amount of these metals in them, he found a tone that can ping off that and disrupt their entire magical conduit through their being, and render them unable to have access to their magic, which for dragons is part of what allows them to get over all of their instincts. Their higher, cognitive abilities also shut down, and it kind of turns them into exactly what Chris and a lot of these mages think dragons are, just, giant lizards that are hungry and will eat people. And so they use that to attack the Dragon Council, and a significant portion of the dragon population dies from this attack. And when he finds that out, he's just like, I didn't expect you to try and do genocide with the techniques that I gave you. I quit. Which, considering how little he thinks of Grith, shows how much he thinks of Lilith at that point, that he's willing to give away this thing that he's wanted his whole life, that his father has trained him from childhood to want. It's like, this is the only thing that he wants in his life, and he's gonna throw that away because they misused the things that he wants. He's like, no, we need to secure dragons, control them and make sure that they're not a threat to everything. Eradication is just why that's so far beyond anything he wants. And so they placate them both, and then kind of after as part of their rehabilitation down the line some ways, after doing some more stuff that they shouldn't do, to secure Chris's allegiance in a really fucked up way, the Dark Lord has Chris chained up and watches as Lilith and his father are put together in this Colosseum area, and Chris's technique is used on Lilith, and then Lilith goes berserk and kills Chris's father. And so that trauma completely changes him from, oh, dragons need to be controlled, to, oh, this dragon whom I trusted just brutally murdered my father. And even though it wasn't her fault, she didn't want to do it, that is just in dragons' nature. So he gets on board with, yeah, dragons, that's their nature. They can't help it. It's not their fault, but they are a threat and they need to be destroyed because of that. But he also recognizes that the Dark Lord killed his father, so he needs to kill the Dark Lord as well. And once he takes over the cult, he can actually make things better for everybody. And so he actually goes through with his plan once again after finding, some hidden powers, some dark powers and stuff. Gets Lilith out. After this killing Chris's father, she refuses to ever take her dragon form again because she doesn't ever want to feel that feeling of helplessness and being tied to her instincts again. So she just stays in her human form. And once Chris, finds out that, Lilith is a man in this form, I think that kind of just seals off any sort of feelings he has for her whatsoever, because even if he could have still been friends with her in her human form, because he sort of convinces her to completely reject her dragon side because dragon instincts are evil, but she's also still part human. That's kind of the whole through thread of why he spends any time with her and trusts her, is because her human side is what keeps her decent. But then, once it's kind of like, oh, well, we can't really have a relationship anymore or anything because of that, and he just sort of stops caring, and he's like, but I made a promise to you, I'm going to get you out, and he does, and then he abandons her to go back into the cult, and he faces off against the Dark Lord because he's like, oh, well, I've got these new dark powers that I found hidden in the library, and I learned them, sort of, which is kind of just like where do you think that book came from? And do you think the Dark Lord doesn't already know these powers? But then the Dark Lord is kind of just like, good, you're back. You've completed your training. And he's just like, excuse me, what? I'm going to kill you and take over everything. And the Dark Lord's like, well, I'm giving you everything. You've completed your training. You've done everything you need to do to become the leader of the cult. You've killed off all of the people who were in your way. You've learned this magic that I've attempted to teach other people for so long, and they're just inept. All the wizards of this world are so pathetically weak, I didn't think I could find somebody to take my place. But you learned in one night what took dozens of months to teach somebody else. And so now I believe I can give everything over to you. And Chris was like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm going to destroy you. And the Dark Lord is like, I died hundreds of years ago. I don't even have any magical power left. You could have always killed me. Which basically says you could have saved your father if you had just tried earlier. Which is... Whew, that is... that's a gut punch that if you don't read into it, you don't get. But damn. And so the Dark Lord takes off all his... he's basically mummified himself. And he's just a skeleton. He's just an undead skeleton. He's like, Lilith's mother brought me back from the dead with her magic to run the cult, to find somebody who can take it over, who's going to be able to continue our mission of destroying dragons. And then he gives Chris the, insignia of the cult leader, and then just disintegrates. And it's just like, wow, talk about perfectly executed Dark Lord training mindfuckery shit. It is so well done. And just absolutely fantastic. And then it gets terrible that after the tragedy of killing Chris's father, Lilith goes from, the spunky, carefree, pushing boundaries teen girl to the most emo, self-loathing pit of despair, which I absolutely hated for her so much. And as she's trying to get away, she's just waiting for Chris to come back because he said he would catch up with her, and he doesn't. So, she just presumes that he's dead because he would, of course, got caught up with her because she still has these strong feelings for him, even though he has almost no feelings for her, which is yet another tragedy. But then she gets captured by this rogue group of magical creatures who are trying to get themselves out of debt by selling, magical creatures to this wizard. But then she sort of convinces one of them to help her escape. And this is one of the first things that I thought the whole human male versus dragon female thing would have been different, is that Lilith, as a teen boy, convinces this probably teen, maybe early 20s female werewolf to spare them. And I'm not saying that's impossible, but I do think that in that situation, somebody would definitely have a softer spot for a female prisoner compared to a male. That might just be my perspective, my outlook on that, but it does feel like something a little bit more would have been needed to really pull at the heartstrings of this werewolf. But I think it's also because as a teenager, she got kicked out of her pack, so she knows what it's like to be young and have everybody abandon you. So I think that's more of what it is. But it was still like yet another place where I thought that difference could have been delved into a little bit more. And so the two of them try to escape. The rest of her team shows up to stop them, and she just kind of begs them not to. And they were kind of just like, fine, if this is your choice, go. Which really shows how much faith they have in each other. Because this was like their ticket out of debt. Like, Lilith would have been worth so much money that this would have set them up to be free from being under this wizard's thumb. So to give that up and just let her go kind of shows the amount of respect and care they have for each other. Which I think as a plot line for how that ends, which I'm going to get to in a few seconds, is yet another tragedy. Because Lilith and this werewolf live together for a little while, for a couple weeks. The werewolf gets a job to support them, and they're kind of just like, yeah, they're friends, they're just struggling, living in a hole in the subway system, and just barely scraping by. And then, as Lilith is out purchasing stuff, she's kind of thrown for a loop because the guy at the deli is just like, you want your usual? And she's like, yeah. It's like, have I been here long enough for that to be a thing? Have I really settled down here long enough for people to recognize me and what I want? That seems very bizarre. And then when she goes back home, her new home, Chris is there. And she's like, oh, you finally found me. And he's like, yeah, I finally found you. We need to go back. And she's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, I've defeated the Dark Lord, and so we can go back and be safe in the tower. And she's like, that's awesome. You've defeated them. You can disband the wizards so that they're not a threat to anybody anymore, and we can go, like, you can take their money and we can go anywhere and live anywhere in the world and be happy together. And he's like, no, we're going back to the headquarters, and we're gonna stay there, and we're just gonna continue. And she's like, no, I'm not going back there. There's no way. And he's like, yeah, we're going back there. That's what's going on. And then she's like, no, I'm staying here with my friend. My friend is here. And so then she starts going in, and he's like, your friend's not here. And she's like, what do you mean? So she goes inside, and she finds her werewolf friend has been gunned down and is dead. And so she's just like, what happened? And he's like, it was just another animal. You're coming with me. And so a strike team of wizards come in and start chaining her up. And such a tragic betrayal, because Chris is just like, oh yeah, he's just now going to use her to do what the group was doing with Grith before, to power their gate, because they found on the other side, this other world that the gate goes to is extremely rich and magic, and they can just pump that into, batteries and stuff and have vastly more magical power than they have otherwise, which is just this whole series is just so rife with tragedy, and it's so well written and set up and pays itself off. So many gut punches. It's so good, because I, unfortunately, am sort of a slut, a sucker for tragedy and dark sort of storylines. So this suits me beautifully. And then we swap back over to Grith and her cousin Pret's story of, yes, they went to the Dragon Summit, and it gets attacked by wizards, and it makes it so that all these dragons just go to their basic instincts, which is defend territory, defend family. suddenly all hundreds and hundreds of dragons are in this enclosed spaces, and they're all like, oh, all these other dragons are in my territory. I need to attack them. And so dragons are just mauling each other left and right. These dragons are seeing these wizards kill their hatchlings, and then going crazy against these wizards. And it ends up that one of the representatives gets murdered, and then for reasons of extended plot story that might not ever get resolved in the story, the Dark Lord has sent a specific kill squad to attack Pret, because Pret has this divination power that he accepted from a god, and the Dark Lord knew who the original owner of this power was and is targeting them specifically. Because it's interesting that it turns out that a lot of these dragons and other creatures too are from different worlds. They're not even from Earth, which is fantastic. There's so many interesting storylines that can be made from that. But instead of Pret getting targeted by the stuff and killed by it, his grandfather is. But their grandfather is a master in time and space magic, which is what he taught his children and his grandchildren. So he uses his magic to slow down the course of this like magical disease that's running through him and is going to kill him. And so because of Grith knowing what this tactic is, she learns to speed up time in a local area, and that screws up the tones so that it no longer affects things. And so they use that to start fighting against the wizards and push them out and kill all of them. And so that kind of starts this whole, okay, we just got ambushed by these wizards who killed a non-insignificant percentage of our population. What are we going to do about that? They managed to kill and probably critically threaten, if not kill, another of our leaders. And so then Grith and Pret talk them, because they're like, oh, well, we'll just go to their headquarters and absolutely destroy them. And Pret's just like, their headquarters is in New York City. If you go to New York City and attack them, you're going to do so much destruction by having a magical duel there that you will undoubtedly be condemned by the government. And the dragons are just like, that's not really such a big thing. And it starts becoming this repetitive joke where these dragons are like, yeah, we're just going to go over and kick these humans' ass. And then Pret's just like, it's like, no, if you do that, then the humans are going to do this and stop you. And then the dragons are just like, I would like to see them try. And then Pret's like, no, you wouldn't. You have been isolated from humans for so long. You do not comprehend the level of technology they have, and they will kill you. Which is hilarious, because it happens like 3 or 4 times where he just keeps saying that. He's like, no, you would not like to see them try, because they will succeed. You will not succeed in destroying humans. You cannot succeed. And then the wizard cult sets it up. They put out this viral video of showing Lilith killing Chris's father, and then showing all of these wizards fighting dragons and starts this whole thing up of, oh, we were trying to prevent more dragons from doing this thing to us, and they killed us, and so they're a big threat. And they had already gone and talked to, the president of the United States and convinced him that, this thing is this big threat to all humanity. And of course, he believes that, and, it's another threat to us. And so that's sort of roughly the roundabout of the second book. And then we get into the really messed up shit with the third book. Because then it introduces yet another character. Well, we sort of get a bunch of different characters that are sort of semi-important, but not super relevant. But then Pret's brother shows up, Eret, who's the literal black sheep of the family because he's all black. But as their grandfather is dying, he takes Grith to this undisclosed location where there's a super gate, a super stargate that goes back to their home world, where all of the feathered, quote-unquote, northern dragons originally came from hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. And their world was destroyed, and so they can't go back, but he's been working on opening this gate and exploring that world and trying to just find out as much about the magic that their people used to use before they gave it all up. And so his part of his goal also was that he wanted to die in his home world. So he wanted Grith to help him open the gate so that they could go into this world and have a proper burial for him there. But he designed the mechanisms that he made around the gate so that only somebody with time or spatial magic could affect it, which is kind of why there is another major gate somewhere, and the wizards sort of have an inkling of it, 'cause it's in Greece, I believe, and a wizard guild thousands of years ago had interacted with it a little bit before it was quote-unquote lost, so they understood how to build their mini gates, and that the only real way to operate them is with spatial magic and time magic. So that's sort of a reason why Grith's grandfather very specifically specializes in those types of magic. But this is also where their family history is laid bare, because he says the gate is severely damaged. It used to be you just turn it on and then it would stay open until you turn it off. But now you turn it on and it's open for, I forget if it was 12 or 24 hours. And generally that wasn't a problem because him and his children and his, at the time, only grandchild, Eret, would work on the gate, and they would go in, and he would usually do it by himself until one of his children, the one that was very specifically, because he had two, I believe, Pret's parents moved away to get away from the family and all that kind of stuff. But Grith's parents were both part of this family endeavor to open the gate. So then after they got involved, it wasn't just their grandfather, Arhas, going in. It also became the parents wanted to go in and do some work there and build some stuff. And so he was like, all right, well, there's 4 of us. If you 2 go in, Eret and I can reopen the gate if anything bad happens, but you'll be back within the time limit, so that's good. But there was some complications, some things happened, and they did not make it back in time. And so they're like, all right, well, it's not too bad. We'll just reopen the gate. And when Arhas and Eret tried to open the gate, something went terribly, terribly wrong. And Eret got... 'cause part of, like, operating the gate makes you become one with the universe. And there is this underlying thread through the story that there is something in the universe before it was created that is there. The void. And it hungers perhaps to eat everything and return everything back to nothingness. And so Eret gets damaged by that in a catastrophic way. It, like, consumes his soul. And so then they can't open the gate. And then as Eret loses his soul, he basically loses his conscience, his morality with that. You know, that's what your soul is. And so he just kind of starts becoming a careless jackass and not following any of the laws or anything and just becoming unhinged slightly. So their grandfather banished him from the family. And so when Grith hears all of this, it's kind of just like, so you're the reason why my parents are gone, and you didn't tell me anything about this, and you exiled my cousin just because of shit that you did. You caused all of this. All of the pain of their family was caused because of their grandfather. And she's just like, this is a lot to take in, and I do not know how to grapple with all of this. But she still has so many fond memories with him and still loves him that she takes the chance to open the gate. They go in, find a temple to, you know, what they consider to be the creator of the universe, the celestial dragon. And he dies there, and she burns his corpse, giving him a proper burial there. And then she comes back. But on his deathbed, he asks her to promise him that he's kept up with humans. He knows what they're capable of. If shit gets really bad, they have the ability to destroy all of dragonkind. So he built something with the gate to turn it into a weapon, because the other side of the gate, their homeworld, the magic has been corrupted in such a way that nothing can live there. It slowly saps the life out of everything that's there. So he kind of focused that into a beam to make it sort of like a magical death bomb. And he's like, if the humans start to threaten all of dragonkind, promise me that you will use this weapon to ensure that we live. And she's just like, I can't do that. I actually respect humans. But she sort of just kind of breaks down as he's dying and just like, I will make sure that we survive. Which is like more and more tragedy. It's so thick. So good. And then she goes back, tells Pret this kind of stuff, and the wizards move in to do another strike with the U.S. military on the dragons, only to find that they've moved. And because at the end of the first book, I completely skipped over that part, Grith fights off against Paul, who was the guy who hired her, the leader of, this wizard corporation, and she fought him and defeated him and saved the mayor and made friends with the mayor. So then when all of this anti-dragon stuff was going on, in the second book, she's talking with the mayor, and the mayor's just like, yeah, I'll support you. I've seen that you're a very good person, and I have a lot of respect for you, but I don't have a lot of power, really. And the mayor also saw how, these viral videos were manipulated to make Grith look bad. And so she kind of understands, like, yeah, this is a smear campaign, so fuck whoever's doing this. And if the actual U.S. government is behind them, fuck them too, which is fantastic. So then she invites all the dragons into Los Angeles and grants them amnesty. And which is crazy, because then it becomes this whole thing. All these dragons are just living in, I forget, is it Central Park? I'm pretty sure New York has Central Park. Are people so unoriginal that that's what they call it in LA as well? Whatever. The biggest park in LA, all the remaining dragons in the northwestern hemisphere are living there, which is very bad because dragons don't like being cooped up next to each other. It's very not great. So they're all getting antsy, and then there's a bunch of individuals that come with guns to attack them, and then there's incursions of scout squads from the U.S. military that's coming in to kill them, and then actual full-blown military attacks against them. Shit is crazy. Then swapping back, Lilith gets saved by none other than Eret, because he kills all the wizards that are there, and they find out that Chris isn't even there. He's just using, illusion kind of magic, light magic to project himself there. So Eret saves her, and he's a very hands-off, because she's like, so now you've captured me. What are your plans? And he's like, what are your plans? We'll do whatever the hell you want. And she's just like, what do you mean? He's like, as far as I know, you're the only creature on this planet who's anywhere near as powerful as I am. And that intrigues me. So she's like, so the only reason why you saved me is because you're interested in my powers? And he's like, sort of. I had a bad interaction with my powers, and it caused me to be expelled from my family, and everybody hates me. So, if that's the case for you, since I know all dragons want to kill you, and now it looks like all of these wizards that you were with want to kill you, I'd think, hey, it'd be nice if that didn't happen to you. But he's still he's super aloof, doesn't care about anything, but he sort of still does. Both Lilith and Eret are characters who show up, and immediately you're just like, I get you. I like you. There's probably reasons why I shouldn't, but I like you. And Aerith's all just like tongue-in-cheek kind of like, Lilith is all like, I hate my dragon nature because it kills people, and he's all just like, oh, I've killed hundreds of people. It's no big deal. Who cares? And she's just like, that's exactly why I don't want my dragon nature, because that's just evil. And he's like, nah, you don't understand. People that are trying to kill you aren't worth anything, so killing them isn't really a problem. And so then he's just like, so what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And she's like, I want to go to Los Angeles. I want to see Pratt. And he's just like, oh, you know my brother. Because Pratt and her have been online friends for years, which is hilarious. I love how everything is so interconnected in such a really cool way. Like the whole thing with the build up of Chris trying to get Lilith out of the tower, Pratt the whole time is like, I want you to get free. I want you to be good. He's constantly giving her positive feedback. When she starts doing her downward spiral after killing Chris's dad, he's there and saying, is like, you don't need to feel bad about this stuff. You weren't in control. It's not you. And he's such a good friend to her. But she can't get a hold of him after she finally escapes because her laptop gets busted in the process. So then she's just like, yeah, I want to go to LA to see Pratt before I die. Because when we get there, all the dragons are going to want to kill me. But everybody wants to kill me. So why do I care? And so Aerith's just kind of like, oh, so, you're friends with my brother already. Wow. Huh. Which is super interesting that, they already know that the wizard cult and the dragons are enemies, but even still during that, Pratt and Lilith are just constantly sending messages to each other. And it's so good. So in the journey of taking her to LA, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens, and he's constantly trying to get her to just accept who she is, for good or bad. She's two halves of one whole, and she doesn't have to be either of those things. She can just be something different, just be whatever she wants. She has enough power that she does not need to let anybody tell her what she is. And despite all of the, negativity that he has, and he's supposed to be this brutish, unthinking, evil person, it's like, he's just kind of not. It's like, yes, he doesn't value anybody who, stands against him, but he doesn't openly, engage in killing people or anything like that. It's only does it in self-defense. So it's just like, yeah. And then there's a part when they get to LA, they run into a bunch of people, and they're all like, oh wow, you're the dragon that was in that viral video. And she's like, yes. But it might not have been that. It's that all the dragons were set up in the park, so they were like, oh, we didn't think any of the dragons were supposed to leave the park. Could you tell us about what's going on or anything like that? And Aerith's just like, don't talk to me. Just go away. And Lilith's being friendly with them, and she talks with them. And there's this old lady who's just being super friendly with her. And there's this chef who comes out, and he's just like, oh, hey, try some of my food. I want to make a good impression to all the dragons that are in the area, and maybe I can get some I don't know. I don't even know what his angle was. Like, maybe he wanted to, like, have dragon customers or whatever thing, but he was just like, here, have some free food. I want to make a good impression, which is awesome. It's like all of these super friendly people, and they're just talking about all this stuff. And then, of course, because nothing that's good can end good, I don't even know what you would call it, squad, platoon, whatever, a military unit rolls up with a fucking tank, and the tank just shoots down the street, fucking middle of the fucking city, and hits them. Lilith isn't hurt very badly. Eret's hurt fairly badly, and he gets shot a few times. And the majority of the humans that they were interactive with are crushed and dying from this explosion. And so she starts using her healing magic to bring them all back, because Eret's kind of just like, so are you just gonna stay, you know, and you're hating your dragon side, or are you actually going to give in and use your magic? Because she also hates her healing magic because it's her mother's magic, and her mother was a piece of shit. But she breaks down and starts healing all these people, because it's like, these were nice people that she was getting along with when they had no reason to get along, because most of her interactions with people have been pretty terrible. So then she starts healing everybody, bringing them back. And then she starts healing Eret because he took some shots. And she finds out that, oh, he literally has a black hole, a hole of nothingness where his soul should be. Except there's just these tiny little fragments of a soul remaining hanging on the edge of this precipice. And he's sort of built them back up and twined them together and sort of like salvaged what was left of his soul, which kind of is like why he's not a completely apathetic, uncaring piece of shit. He's just mostly that way. And so she's just like, I can heal you. I can fix you. Because when there was a time when after Chris and her tried to escape the first time, Chris was set on fire, and the Dark Lord was just like, heal him. And so she healed him, and she kind of just was getting into, oh, her healing magic is such a way that she can delve into people's minds and restructure them. She can take away people's memories of, you know, all the bad shit that's ever happened to them to make them more pure and wholesome. And she can correct people's souls so that all the trauma that's there, she can take that away. And every time she's just like, no, I can't touch this shit. I don't want to be like my mom and fuck with people's, you know, entire being. But when she sees Eret and how he struggled to, like, put back what little of his soul is there, she's just like, I will just take some of my soul, add it to yours. I will take some of my memories of you and make you see yourself the way that I see you. And I'm sure that you have friends and family somewhere, and I can try to take some of their memories and everything and put them in you and just rebuild you and make you who you used to be before this thing was inflicted upon you. But then there's more shots fired, and her magic flares up, and she stops them all. And then she kind of goes like Super Saiyan, super fucking, you know, fire starter, lose control of your power shit. And she annihilates all the humans that are there. And then she can sense that there's much more down the street and around the corner. So she floats her way down there and just starts butchering this like platoon or unit of soldiers, killing them all. And then Eric catches up with her, and he's like, wow, I didn't think you'd have that in you. And she's just like, I don't. I can't stop. And then it cuts away back to the dragons trying to survive in, the park. All of the bunch of them keep getting shot by military personnel and random jackasses with guns. And then there's a whole military incursion on them. And there's all these other threads of, like, Pret's super depressed because all of the visions he has through his divination power, through his eye of divination, because he's also a precog. Never says that in this books, never specifically says that he's a precog, but he literally is. The magic that his grandfather taught him allows him to see into the future for seconds, or if he pushes himself, minutes. It's literally what precognitiveness is. So he's a precog. But his divination magic always comes true. Whatever thing he sees in the future always comes true. And after the attack, before the attack, really, he runs into this dragoness who he's seen die. And she's the daughter of one of the 4 leaders, and this leader is the one that dies in the big attack, and then Pret is just constantly trying to stay around her so that he can save her life. But then he fails at that, she dies, and he gets attacked afterwards. And she just dies because there's so many wizards that have infiltrated the military that they always make it so that they attack first, and then, edit stuff to make the camera stuff look like, oh, the dragon attacked us, and blah, 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 blah. It's infuriating every time it happens. But Pret is super depressed because he's like, I have already seen a nuclear bomb hit LA, and I have seen the shockwave coming at me. So I can't stop that. So what is the point of anything? And so then, while they're doing this fight against the squadron that's trying to fight their way in, and one of the other leaders, has made like this stone maze around them, he has a crisis of conscience there where he almost just like gives up as they start getting surrounded. And then this god of time or whatever appears in front of him, and he's just like, why did you even bother giving me these powers if I can't do anything about it? If I can't use this to help people or save people, what is the point? And she just says, you can't change what you see. But that doesn't mean you can't change what happens before or what happens after. Which is fantastic way to spin, the whole inevitability thing. It's so good. And then that's when Griff comes back from being with her grandfather, and she saves them. And showing that she has these crystals that supercharge their natural magical batteries so that she can use her magic for extreme potency for a modest amount of time. And Griff's magic is time manipulation. So she just makes herself into the Flash, she stops bullets, and she's just going around wrecking absolute face. Because when you think about it, speed, when taken to its extreme, is one of the most powerful things in existence. Like, there's very little that can compete with mind-boggling speed. And then they see this magical tornado of destruction, and it does a whole bunch of damage, then goes up in the air and starts growing, and then Eric shows up, kind of tells them that, oh yeah, that's Lilith. And then, you know, one of the leaders that's still left is just like, you were banished, and you brought the hybrid here. I'm going to destroy both of you. And then both Griff and Pratt are just like, we've got bigger friggin' problems than that right now, okay? And so this Elder Dragon, like, does a ritual spell where she rips out one of her own teeth, because dragon parts are extremely, you know, inundated with magic. So she rips her own tooth out and uses that as a spell component to make this beam of magic that just obliterates Lilith. But then, because of the way her magic works, Lilith just reconstitutes herself from magic. Just recreates her entire body. So it's like, oh, Lilith is kind of immortal. It's like, that's interesting. And then Aerith's just kind of like, yeah, I haven't been able to stop her either, and I'm stronger than you, so. And then Pratt and Grith go in, because that did significantly reduce the magic storm so that they could actually go in and talk to Lilith. And they see her there, and she's just curled up into a ball, terrified of what's going on. It's like, she doesn't want to hurt anybody. And so they sort of slowly talk her down from it. And through this entire, like, arc of, once Grith finds out about the hybrid and all this stuff, she's like, yeah, the hybrid's a threat. We gotta kill her, protect ourselves, and this stuff. Grith seems super wishy-washy about so many different things. And it's like, yes, on the one hand, she keeps getting new information, sort of, so she keeps changing her opinion, which is totally valid. But Pratt keeps telling her, it's like, no, I know Lilith, she's good. But Pratt keeps going wishy-washy over what to do with this, what to do that, and, you know, what they should do regarding humans and all this stuff. And so, because she comes back with their grandfather's idea to release this bomb, and their Pratt's just like, no, this is a stupid idea. If you bomb, because Grith wants to bomb Washington, D.C. to kill the leadership of America. And Pratt's just like, that's not going to work. Like, the president's probably not even there by now. He's in a bunker somewhere. And you're going to kill not just all the leadership, but tons of innocent people. And you are going to make all dragons the absolute enemies of humanity. So, no, you can't do that. And so she's like, well, we don't really have any other choice because they're going to kill us. And Pratt's reply was like, yeah. And then she, what was it? She says, you're just a coward. You won't do what is necessary to protect us. And Pratt says, I would rather be a coward than a war criminal. And it's like, I get it. I understand that, you know, you don't want the blood of innocents on your hands, but it's just retaliation. Like, if they're gonna, you already know that they're gonna drop a nuclear bomb on you to eradicate your species from existence. So, I don't think dropping a death wind on a populated area just to try and tell them, like, hey, we have this shit too. You want to start using weapons of mass destruction on us, we have them too. So how about you just chill your shit? That's a perfectly valid thing in my mind. So then, while dealing with Lilith, it's weird that Grith kind of comes around on her completely and is just like, yes, you're fine. We will protect you. We will accept you. And all this stuff. So Lilith eventually calms down some. And they both tell the elders, like, no, you're not going to kill her. We're going to figure all this stuff out. And so it just progresses. Chris shows up and just says, oh, hey, I'll convince the president not to drop the atomic bomb on you guys if you give me Lilith. And Press just like, there's no fucking way in hell that's happening. And Griff is just like, well, maybe. And Lilith is just like, sure, I'll go back with you if you promise to protect these people. And he's like, yeah, all right, we'll make a deal. And Prince is like, fucking no, what the hell are you doing? This is the stupidest idea ever. And Griff's like, well, we can't trust him, but we don't really have many options. And if this is what Lilith wants to do, then that's what we'll do. Which is not only a hilariously stupid idea, but she even says, both her and her witch friend Ashley, which Ashley plays a big part in the whole thing, because they're all friends, all three of them. Because Ashley is the owner of the sanctuary in LA's owner, and who is like an immortal. I don't even know if you could call her human. She's like a spirit almost, like the spirit essence of nature. It's basically what she is. She's a witch who's just, lived for hundreds, if not thousands of years and is incredibly powerful. But even Ashley's kind of like, oh, I don't think this is a great idea. You can't trust Chris, because Ashley was there the whole time when they were looking for when the disappearances happened in book 1, Ashley was helping to find them because they're part of her sanctuary. And that's where Grith and Ashley kind of started becoming friends. And Pratt was friends with Ashley before that because he visited the sanctuary quite a bit. So Ashley's a super cool character. And then they go and they give Lilith over. And then Lilith and Chris teleport away. And then right after that is an immensely interesting scene in that Chris is talking shit and just, blah, 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 and then he's like, we're far enough away from the blast radius that the bomb won't hit us, so we'll be safe here, and we can start doing our work, and so long as you help us, we'll be able to do so much good stuff together. And so once she realizes that he's not going to stop the bomb, that the vast majority of dragons are going to die, she kind of gets this. She still has feelings for him. As much as she's portrayed, she's always like, he has become this insufferable piece of shit because of me, because of what I did, because he had to watch me kill his father. So she starts. They get in an elevator together, and he's such a cocky jackass at that point that she's not chained up or anything. And so she just turns to him and she's just like, I can fix you. And he's like, what do you mean? And so she starts using her healing magic on him and pulling apart his soul and his brain. And she's just like, look at all of this negative stuff in here. All of this hate, fear. And then she finds that Chris has the same soul corruption that Eric does, eating away at him. And she's like, I can fix this. But then she decides not to, because she doesn't want to super fuck with shit. Which is unfortunate, because things might have been interesting if she had, because then immediately after, he goes from being terrified of her because she literally had control of not just his present, but his future and his past. With what she could have done to him. And then he's immediately like, chain her up, strap her to the gate machine, and drain everything from her. And he's just such a catastrophic jackass. And then shit gets interesting and stupid at the same time, because it's just like, then because of what the goddess told Pret, he goes to the sanctuary, and these people who got healed by Lilith show up, and they're kind of just like, how the hell did you guys get in here? Regular humans can't get in past these barriers. And then the mother, the owner, is just kind of like, yeah, remember I told you how the barrier that you made has kind of been changing and expanding and getting weaker? Yeah, it's gotten to the point where it doesn't even do anything now. People are just walking in from the street. And so he's just like, that doesn't make any sense. I saw how to make these runes with my divination, so I needed to make them. And I knew that was going to happen, and they've protected this place for several years. What is going on with them? And he goes down and looks at them, and he has this epiphany. It's like, oh shit. The wards have grown and expanded and come to life, and they've expanded across a large portion of the city, but they've gotten weak because of it. So all they need is a battery to charge them. And what did they just do? They just gave away their super battery. So it's just like, motherfuckers, you couldn't had this realization like half an hour ago, and so you could have told Lilith, hey, don't do that stupid thing. Do this and save tons of people instead. So that instead, Pret, Griff, and Ashley all go to save Lilith after just giving her away. And it culminates into... They sneak in, slow stealth stuff. They manage to get Lilith free. But then, imagine that. It's a fucking trap. And there's, 36 wizards all primed to just go nuts on them. And there's a very specific wizard there who is a time wizard specifically to counteract the stuff that Griff does. And so they fight, and the elevator is too small for, 3 dragons in it. They had to stand on top of each other, just the 2 of them, to get down in the first place, which was hilarious. So she tells them, Pret, get Lilith out. Ashley, cover them. I will catch up with you. And they're like, no, you won't. There's 30 some odd fucking wizards down here. And she's like, don't worry, I got this. And so they leave. Ashley uses some of her magic to protect the elevator from getting hit and for anybody to try and stop them. And so then it just becomes an attrition slaughter fest of Grith versus these 30 some odd fucking wizards. And they've got all these different specialties. She manages to I forget how, but she tricks the time mage and manages to kill him so that she can actually use her super speed to actually kill a bunch of them. And so she starts mowing through them, and then one of them has like hive mind powers, so he's telling everybody how to coordinate their powers perfectly to overcome her super speed. And then they've got a bunch of them that have like super shields and all this crazy shit. So she's fighting through all this stuff. She's taking tons of damage, but eventually she kills all these wizards. And then she's exhausted, and her supercharged power runs out. And then Chris appears. Douchebag extraordinaire. And he's made for himself I don't even know what you would call it, really. Like it's a device that harnesses power, like a super battery. And he uses that to make himself some magical armor and a magical weapon. And he just steps on her face, and he's just like, look how violent you are. Thank you for just... I always knew you were an irredeemable, chaotic mess. But you've just killed murdered so many people here. This is why I'm going to kill you. And then he tries to kill her, and he can't do it. And so it's sort of just this moment of he's 99.9% of an irredeemable fucking douchebag, but there's still some part of him in there who remembers that, you know, as much as Grith was awkward as fuck, she didn't do anything with malice. But then he goes in for gets over it, goes in for an actual killing blow, and then Eret shows up. Cocky motherfucker. And he had met Chris before when he first saved Lilith. So he's just talking down to Chris, and he's just like, you're the only other person who I've ever seen who has the kind of powers that I do. So I just wanted to ask you a simple question. Chris is just like, just die, and starts, using all of these void powers on him, and Eret's kind of just like, nah, just stands there, and it doesn't affect him at all. And so they just have this back and forth, and Eret's just like, the whole the consequence of these powers, is that it makes you so you don't care about anything. It's apathy. It's just the void of nothingness. And so it's like, but you obviously care. You just did your whole villain spiel about how you were going to take over the whole world and make everything better for humans by destroying dragons and enslaving all of the magical creatures and stuff. It's like, you obviously care about something, so how the fuck do you have these void powers? And Chris just loses his temper because he wants none of this bullshit, and so they get into a fight. And gradually, even though Eret's just like nonchalantly fighting and doesn't care, Chris slowly starts damaging him, slowly starts doing catastrophic damage, cuts off one of his arms, cuts off the other arm, cuts his wings off, cuts his tail off. And it's just like, their void powers can't really hurt each other. But Chris, using the battery, had made this sword and armor, so he's fighting. And the whole time, Eret is gradually stripping that armor off. And then as Chris pins him to a wall with his sword, and he's just like, You're so stupid. Your void powers can't hurt me, and mine can't hurt you, but I'm about to kill you. And then Aerith's just like, oh, well, I know I couldn't hurt you. That's not what I've been doing at all. And Chris was just like, what? And then, kaboom, Chris is incinerated as Grith comes up behind him and just melts his ass. And it's just like, yes. And she's just like, I always keep my promises. So fucking good. Just, oh, God, it was so fantastic. Just multiple things coming together right there. So fantastic. So then with the help of Lilith in the thing, they help prevent people from dying, but LA still gets fucking leveled. And then they come up with the idea to use the death wind off the coast of Washington to show that they can do this, but not actually kill millions of people. And the army attacks them, and they have a lot more dragons die, and they fight their way to where the gate is, and then use it. And that kind of becomes the end of the story. And then that's all super cool. But there are so many story bits and stuff that just do not get tied together and do not go anywhere. And I know at the end it says that there's going to be side books and stuff, but there's so much set up here that you can, and I hope it will get done, make so much more. But I will say, I was rather not happy with the end. Because after they release the bomb, it immediately cuts to 4 months later with Grith as the de facto leader of the dragon faction who has become the United Coalition of America. The United States has seceded the Rocky Mountains and a little bit of other extra terrain to this new government, and they're signing this peace treaty. And it's just like, it's kind of weird that that's happening. That's kind of not how a lot of stuff was set up, but that's fine-ish, I guess. And then Pret settles down and falls in love with a human who's using a shifter stone to turn into a dragon all the time, and they're moving in with each other. So that's pretty cool. But then Eric disappears and Lilith leaves. And I was just like, okay, she's going to find herself and explore the world and all that kind of stuff. But then she eventually finds Eric in Greece at the Greater Stargate. And they, talking to each other, and they're both like, yeah, we've got so many people here who hate us. We want to go somewhere else and start a life anew. And I fucking hate that. I hate that so much. I get it that Lilith is scared because so many people have seen the video of her eating somebody, and there's lots of dragons and lots of people who are her enemies or whatever, all that shit. I understand all that, but Pret was her friend through the whole thing, and she's just gonna friggin' abandon him without even saying anything? That sucks so much ass. And Eric kind of redeems himself, and so Grith unbanishes him. So that means, the two brothers could actually get to know each other again and have a family. But Eric's just like, no, I have all of these weird feelings. I'm actually starting to care about shit again, and I don't want to be around all these people who hate me and stuff. It's like, fucking dude, that is so fucked up that even if everybody else hates them both, Pret still cares a lot for both of them. Like, he is a genuinely great friend to Lilith. And they could easily mend his relationship with his brother. And the fact that was all just thrown out and just discarded like that kind of pisses me off. Like, the whole, oh, we want to start a life somewhere else and never come back. It's like, that irritates me so much. I want there to be more stories of them exploring these other worlds, because there's these threads of the original owner of the Divine Eye was killed in a different world by this guy who was later a religious fanatic who was later resurrected and was the Dark Lord. Like, there's so many threads here, and the fact that Lilith's mother was the Pearl Conqueror who took over tons of land in this other world and caused so much death and destruction. And it's like, there's so much more here to explore. And if it's going to be with Eret and Lilith, that's cool. But if they're never going to have any contact with Pret ever again, or invite him out to see them and stuff, I think that is a massive fuck up. That is a massive screw up in the story, because friends and family are where you need these. So even both of them only having one, if Pret was just the shining light of friendship in the dark that they have, other than the fact that they're probably going to fall in love, and that's fine. But they kind of both need Pret to be like the bedrock of something social other than each other, so they don't just have this tiny little bubble. And it's not just for themselves, but I think it's also kind of a very disservice to him that they're both just disappearing. But yeah, there's so much good stuff here. I kind of wanted to break this into like 3 or 4 different videos, but oh well. It is what it is. There's still a lot of stuff I didn't talk about. I only hit like a lot of the major plot points. But it's so fantastic that this is just all about how do humans and dragons interact with each other, because there's so many times where all it takes is for a dragon to get angry or whatever, because there's a time when Pret was trying to like do a press release kind of thing to show how easy he is to get along. So he just does a Q&A, and he's like, I don't want to talk politics or any of that crap that's going on. Just ask questions about me or my family or how dragons work in general. And it's going along really well until somebody comes up with a knife and stabs him in the tail. And then he immediately roars, turns around, and almost kills the guy. And it scares the shit out of everybody. And it's kind of like, do you think that's unwarranted? Like, of course that's going to be the reaction he has. And that's the sort of thing, is like, as long as you know what the possibility of things that can happen, then these things shouldn't come as a shock to you. It's like wanting something else to conform to your social norms is not healthy. It's like you have to understand the way that they operate and then at least try to find some common ground somewhere. But yeah. I absolutely love all the depictions of dragon nature in this. Like, spot on, perfect. I adore absolutely every part of it, except maybe the hybrid stuff. It was interesting, but I don't see why it was there or why it, and then not explored super in depth. if it was just a reason to have, a dragon form and a human form instead of a mixed blood form, it's like there probably could have been other ways to do that other than doing split gender. Damn it! There's a term for it. Parthenogenesis. But there's lots of great stuff that can be continued, more fleshed out. I hope it happens, and I hope it still includes some of the older characters as well. And you could even start, looking into other species and compare and contrast their social norms and stuff too, because I don't think, to me, a lot of the societal stuff and instinctual stuff that was covered in this, I just took it as, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Of course, this was the way it was going to be, because this is the way I've looked at things forever. But for a lot of people, it's probably pretty strange and pretty out there. And I think this series is fantastic for delving into those kind of things, even though they should kind of be more mainstream. Like, fantasy and sci-fi and stuff is like, oh, there's all of these other species that, they're basically human because they act human, they think human, we can basically see eye to eye. And it's just like, why? Why would that be the case? Like, there's so many fantasy races and sci-fi races that are like, they're so far removed from human that you could just do entire massive studies on that kind of stuff, which I think is great. And I think it's kind of unfortunate that there has always been this huge trend in fantasy and sci-fi to make all characters be more human, especially protagonists. It's always the human protagonist who's stranger in a strange land with these, 85% human species. And it's like, I've always not liked that stuff, which is why dragon point of view stuff specifically is my jam. And I hope more people who want to write in that vein read this or at least take these sort of ideas in stride and really think about how different is your characters from what somebody might think is the norm. Just not only mentally, but their biological, everything builds upon itself. So even just a few minor changes can dramatically change the end result. Yeah, that is the absolute best thing about this series is basically like a scientific exploration through story of a beautiful subject. So yes, absolutely love this. I'm waiting for more books to be announced by this author, and hopefully it'll be more great stuff. Hope everybody enjoyed this massively long rant, but that's what I love to do. I love talking about cool stuff that I'm a fan of. That is all for now. Have a great evening.